Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the community table. We've been having conversations all year long here at Beyond Type 1 every month, focusing on crucial issues faced by the entire diabetes community. Tonight is no different. We're talking about living well at all ages with diabetes. I'm Jordan, the Director of Programs here at Beyond Type 1, and I'm going to hand it off momentarily to our awesome panelists. But before we get started, our team wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the passing of our incredible CEO, Tom Shear, earlier this month. Tom loved this series so much and championed it like he did so many other projects supporting people everywhere with diabetes. We miss him and we dedicate tonight's conversation to him. Tom, thank you for everything. As always, I want to thank all of you who are joining us tonight in Zoom and on Facebook Live, as well as those who make our conversations at the community table possible. Community Table is presented by the JDRF-Beyond Type 1 Alliance and made possible with support from Abbott Diabetes Care, Dexcom, Lilly Diabetes, MannKind, Medtronic, Omnipod, Roche Diabetes Care, and Tandem. While you're watching tonight, if you have questions for this group, we will do our best to take some later on in the discussion. So please feel free to drop them into the chat if you're on Zoom or into the comments if you're on Facebook, and we will do our absolute best to get to those. For now, I'm going to ask our amazing panelists to go ahead and come on video. And I'm going to hand it off to the amazing Tiana, who's going to moderate this conversation tonight. Tiana, please feel free to take it away.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our final community table of the year. We're here on behalf of Beyond Type 1, and tonight we're going to be having our conversation around the golden years, living well at all ages with diabetes. We're very grateful and so excited to get started. So I will introduce myself first. My name is Tiana Cooks. I've been living with type 1 diabetes for 7 years now and have truly just enjoyed the whole journey. I've learned a lot. I've met a lot of people with diabetes. I'm inspired by every single one of them, and very proud to be working here as the community manager at Beyond Type 1.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle James. I have been living with type 1 diabetes since 2005. I am the mom of one teenager. I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I was born in the Caribbean, specifically Trinidad and Tobago. And diabetes, I mean, in the beginning for me, it's been a while since I've been living with it. I did not know of a community. I did everything on my own. I honestly didn't find the community until maybe about 3-4 years ago. So just living with it, it's just another part of me. I don't really see it as a disability in any way, shape, or form. It's just one fact of life that I live with. But yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you for sharing. Robert, would you like to introduce yourself?
I would love to. Thank you for having me. My name is Chef Robert Lewis. I am a chef living with type 2 diabetes since 1998. Father, grandfather, been married for over 40 years. Culinary arts instructor at a local college, graduate of the Culinary Institute of America. And again, happy to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to learn more about you and your journey so far. And Anna, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Hi. Well, yes, I'm really excited to be here. I live in Argentina and travel quite a lot to and fro from Spain, particularly lately. And I've been living with type 1 diabetes since 2006. I've got 4 amazing kids, 5 grandkids, and I'm a translator, teacher, interpreter, so I can work almost anywhere. And that's why I get to travel quite a lot, fortunately. I also write a blog in Spanish, and I'm active in social media and advocacy initiatives in Latin America and Spain. So, I'm thrilled to be here, really.
So impressive. And I love traveling too, so we'll definitely have to touch base on
it. We'll do that.
Thank you. Dr. Fran, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I think it's either late afternoon, maybe evening, maybe even tomorrow already for some people. But my name is Fran. I'm an endocrinologist. I've been in the field of diabetes since 1978. So when I began, it was only animal insulin and urine testing. And I have been able to watch with my patients, and I've probably taken care of thousands and thousands of people with diabetes, mainly children, since I'm a pediatric endocrinologist, through my practice at Children's Hospital Los Angeles, through diabetes camps around the world, and just watch this journey and been a partner, I hope, with most of my patients in their journey with diabetes. And although my career started in type 1 in the late 90s, early 2000s, type 2 diabetes became a true entity for youth, adolescents, and got to do a fair amount of NIH research around that. I was a researcher for many years, a clinician, and now I'm actually in industry. And right now I'm the chief medical officer at Senseonics, the industry partner that does the fully implanted glucose sensor. And I'm thrilled to be here. And if you guys are traveling together, you better bring me.
You're so invited. Oh my goodness. I am so thankful for all of you joining us tonight. This is going to be an incredible conversation. For those of you who are watching, if you have questions, we would love to answer them towards the end. So feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll get to those here in a bit. But like I said, thank you all. This is, I think all of us, our expertise is just gonna be amazing. So I do have my very first question that anyone can just jump in. For those of you who are living with diabetes, I would love to learn a bit more about your journey with diabetes so far, from the time you were diagnosed. I can go first. I remember when I was diagnosed, I was 17 years old. And since then, wow, like technology has just enhanced and it just continues to evolve. From when I started 7 years ago to now, and I'm very fortunate and grateful for it. But I know that some of you also have quite a bit of experience, given the time that you were diagnosed to now. So I'd love to hear more about that.
So go ahead.
So for me, diabetes actually started during my pregnancy. So they assumed it was gestational diabetes, and maybe about 5 months after my son was born, I mean, they kept testing me throughout that time and kept saying everything was fine. But then at about the 5 or the 6 month mark, I noticed certain signs was showing up, the typical being tired all the time, going to the bathroom all the time, drinking too much water, and of course the loss of weight. But for me, the weight wasn't that much of a concern because I've always been extremely small. But anyway, once that started showing up, I went back in, they tested me, and it just snowballed from there into type 1. And it's always interesting when you hear different people's diagnosis story, how it starts off. I know generally with gestational, it tells you that maybe later on in life you might deal with diabetes, but you don't really think it would just turn into type 1. So that's my diagnosis story. And even when I was diagnosed back in 2005, the pumps were already around. So it has been interesting watching the technology advance within the pump. So for me, I never spent a lot of time with multiple injections, if you will. It's always been a pump. So like Tiana said, it's been really interesting watching and being a part of, or being able to use some of these different technologies as time has gone by.
So I was on a vacation coming back from Colorado, not feeling really good. And like Michelle, had to go to every rest stop I could to go to the bathroom, and was super thirsty, and got back and visited my doctor, who checked my blood sugar, my blood glucose levels, and they were like 475. And he said, "Hey, congratulations, you have type 2 diabetes. Here's a bunch of pamphlets, start reading, learn everything you can. I'm going to give you some medicine and I'll see you back later." That was like my introduction to diabetes, and I didn't know anything about it. And of course, I was not a very good diabetic patient. I didn't want to stick my finger. I read a lot about the fact that, I couldn't eat this and don't eat this and don't go near this and don't smell this. And I'm a chef. I'm a graduate of a chef school. I worked in the restaurant industry all my life. Matter of fact, I think of myself as the chef of the world. Have you guys ever met a chef of the world before? No, here you go. Here I am. Says it right there on my coach, chef of the world. But so for me, it was I was in denial for a very long time, didn't take care of myself, but I met some people, I networked with some people in hospitals who helped me. And as soon as I took ownership of my disease, amazing things started to happen with my health. So that's kind of how it happened for me. I didn't have any diabetes in my family that we knew about. My mother was adopted, so we didn't really know. But it's been an amazing journey, like a roller coaster, up and down. Hold on tight. Fasten your seatbelt.
Just hang on.
Yeah,
and you'll make it.
Yeah, and I take mealtime insulin. I use a CGM today. I'm all about the amazing technology that are at your fingertips as a diabetic that can help you just live a much more fulfilling and richful diabetic life.
Well, yeah, my story is kind of like somewhere in between. I was diagnosed back in 2006, routine checkup, blood work, and my glucose was high. So it was my gynecologist who said, "Welcome to the club. You've got type 2 diabetes." I said, "It can't be true. That cannot be, that's impossible." And it wasn't type 2, it was type 1. After a few rough months, I got tested and it was type 1. So I started on insulin and things started changing. But as I lived in Argentina, things were a bit different. Technology was not that easy to come by. And there was very little peer support. And I knew there was a different world out there. I knew there was a tribe, but I couldn't find it. So I turned to the internet. I'm lucky because I can read in English. So I found very interesting blogs and forums and pages. It was quite different 15 years ago. And I found my tribe. And here I am, interacting with lots of people everywhere all over Latin America, Spain, and the States and Canada.
It's a very loving
great
community, people with diabetes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, when we speak about tribe and all of that stuff, even when I was diagnosed back in 2005, and the internet was around, we had different social media back then. I didn't think to reach out and look for that kind of stuff. And it's probably because for me, like Robert said, I wasn't good in the beginning, but I wasn't good because one, I was ignoring it. And two, I just had a child. I'm a single parent. My job is in jeopardy now because of this diagnosis, and that's where my focus was. It wasn't on managing diabetes. It was just on whether or not how I'm going to take care of my child once I'm out of the military, because I was active duty at the time, and then how am I paying bills? That's where my worry was. So in the beginning, it wasn't. I was ignoring it because it wasn't top priority. And yeah, like Robert said in the beginning, it was not. It was bad. It's a miracle that I'm sitting here because it was bad. But yeah, you got the technology, and then like I said, I didn't find the tribe until maybe about 4 years ago, and that was because I decided to open myself up to it.
So I think we might do a little bit better with children, where we do try to connect them. They've got camps, they've got programs, and it makes all the difference in the world for them to realize I'm not the only one. I'm not the odd person out, and I can be someplace where I don't have to explain myself. And I'm just finishing clinic today. Saw a number of children to adolescents, and they do kind of fluctuate in how much attention, depending on what else is going on in their lives, they can pay to their diabetes. Imagine, you're 14 you're going through puberty, you're, finishing middle school, you want to be popular. And it's hard to integrate that diabetes if you don't feel, that you're going to be accepted. So having that community, and then for the parents as well, having somebody else to talk to, you've gone through it, what is it like? I think does make all the difference in the world. And as a healthcare provider, and you each have a story. I'm part of thousands of stories where they come to me misdiagnosed, late diagnosed, early diagnosed, but it's always just incredibly daunting to say, the diagnosis is correct, it's not going to go away. And now, here are all the tools, and I have so many more tools now. I have a whole toolbox, to really be able to help people with.
The challenge too is, as my friend, Dr. Bill Polanski will say, the Diabetic Police, right? So it's all those people who and who don't know anything about diabetes, who have a judgment about how you look, how you act, what you do.
What you eat.
Yeah, I mean, you ate yourself into diabetes. I knew it. I knew you would do that. I mean, really? I mean, this is not helping me, And so, for me, my family is my tribe for sure. Although, I've written a lot of cookbooks and I get to work with a lot of great companies and doctors. And I'm blessed like you can't believe. But, I've surrounded myself with people that want to help me to be a better human being and a better diabetic. And so, it was kind of a stigma when I was diagnosed in my brain. I'm sure it wasn't for anybody else, but wow, I've got diabetes. I don't really want to tell anybody about it. I mean, it was, I was kind of ashamed about it because I thought I ate myself into diabetes. I mean, that's what I heard, which I learned very quickly that was not the case. And then once I came to terms with all of that, then amazing things started to happen. I became very proactive. Yeah. I would suggest to anyone who's diagnosed, take responsibility for your disease, and amazing things will happen.
Yeah. I think
I completely agree.
Oh, sorry.
No. I agree with Robert. It's just you have to take charge of things, and good things happen when you do that.
Yes.
100%. I completely agree with both of you. And kind of in that vein, I'm just curious, from your perspective, what has been the most significant or surprising change in the way that we manage diabetes since you were diagnosed? I know I mentioned technology, and Michelle, you
definitely
mentioned internet and being able to, find that tribe online. Yeah. But I know there was a time when maybe we couldn't find a tribe online, and, we found ourselves meeting people in person, and that has evolved over time to where now we can do that. We have the opportunity to hop on our cell phones, and we have thousands of people at our fingertips. I think there's just so many different things that have, like we said, evolved over the years. But I'm curious to know for you each, what has been the most significant change or surprising change?
When I was diagnosed, I met with a dietitian who gave me a list of 3,425 foods I could never eat ever again, right? Don't eat that, don't smell that, right? And so as a chef, I'm like thinking, this is not going to be the disease for me. No way, right? And I think that didn't exactly help me. So, the fact that now we say, eat what you like, but eat in moderation. Yes. Control your portions, do your exercise, see your doctor, check your blood sugar. I like to think of my blood glucose monitor as my little miniature laboratory for me to gauge how I'm doing and my time in Target and all that kind of stuff. So eating for me, I think, has really evolved from when I was first diagnosed.
That's a big one.
Yeah, I agree with that. I hadn't thought about it, but yes. In my case, it's access to technology. That has made a huge difference. And it's not just the technology itself, but access, being able to afford it, or to have a health care system that provides some sort of technology, which is hard to come by in Latin America. Let's be honest. I'm a lucky one. I've got a CGM, I've got a pump, But most people don't even have meters. So having gained access to technology has made a great difference to lots and lots of people.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely the community, because the community is what opened my eye to the different technologies out there. So I remember when I was introduced to the pump. So I was diagnosed in 2005, and I didn't actually get on the pump until 2007. They initially tried to give me a pump, and I'm like, I don't know about that. And then, of course, because I wasn't doing very well, you know, you have A1Cs for me in the double digits. They're like, no, you need to get on the pump. So you get a pump, and then of course, because I didn't want to learn anything else. And again, even after I started managing diabetes better and having better, you know, control or whatever, it still wasn't the forefront. For me, diabetes is just a fact of my life. It's not the forefront of my life. So I was only exposed to one type of technology. And because of the community, I got open, my eyes were open to everything else that was out there. You know, and I don't want to put that blame on the endocrinologist that I had at the time that was only pushing one type of thing towards me, but it was just that I didn't take the initiative to go look for other things. Right. So being a part of the community, you hear stories about people with different types of pumps, whether it be the ones with the tubes or with tubeless. Then they open my eyes to CGMs, and you're like, okay, now there's different types of CGMs and, you know, different brands and all this other stuff. So definitely the biggest change for me, you know, the biggest eye opener is the community. And again, as much as I'm self-alone, I like to do things by myself, having that community there, even though it's virtual most of the time, it did open my eyes to a lot of other things out there. So
I'm going to be controversial and tell you that when I started my career, the concept was that as the physician, you should be telling your patients what to do, how to live their lives, what to eat, what to take, and you're the one in charge. And of course, nothing could be more fallacious than that concept. You know, particularly in diabetes may be the most important disease to see that it's a partnership, I hope.
Yes.
I am not the one, you know, with my hundreds and thousands of patients, I'm not the one living with diabetes. I have to be able to help them, you know, get through the phases they're in, get through, you know, what they're willing to do and not do at any point in time, and support them. I'm not the captain of the ship. I'm not even sure, you know, I'm the co-pilot. I'm somewhere in the back, loading all the information onto that ship. So, and listening to all the different issues so that everybody with diabetes can figure out what this journey is for themselves and make their journey the best they can in the context of their own lives.
Yep.
I love how you kind of phrase that and, you know, use the ship analogy. I feel like
I use it.
need more providers like you, Miss Fran.
And I think providers are
It is changing.
Change, right? I mean, they're requiring more of us as patients to take more responsibility and to take more initiative, because, you know, we're driving the train, that's for sure.
Oh, yes. And that kind of brings to my next question. We all have our own, you know, experiences, and we've all walked our own journey, but we do have a lot of combined experience. And so when it comes to discussing diabetes with your healthcare provider, what are some conversations that have changed over the years? And what advice or lessons could you give to anybody here that might be watching?
Be your own advocate. Like you said, you have to take, and I get that will mean something different based on the age of the person, you know, when they're diagnosed, but as adults, you know, you have to be your own advocate. And like Dr. Fran said, you know, she is not the captain, but there is a partnership there. So you have to be open to talking. Now, then again, I know for me, I've gone through 3 or 4 different endocrinologists. And it's not necessarily by choice, it's because my care is through the Veteran Affairs. So when they switch out doctors, it just switches out with them. And I have to say the doctor that I have now is even more engaging than the ones I've had in the past. And again, I think because of that, it helps me be more open with that person. It's also maybe because I am older now, I am wiser, I have more experience. And then because I have the community and you're listening to different stories, you kind of get an idea of, okay, maybe I should be asking about this. Maybe I need to pay attention to this. Maybe I need to talk about this. But what it all boils down to is just being an advocate for yourself and just being honest. You have to be honest, or else that partnership is not going to work. That doctor is not going to be able to advise you as well, and then it's going to start sounding like they're really trying to control your life, when that's really not what they're there to do or want to do. So
I'd say educate yourself and come. Yeah. What I do is I come with a list of questions, and now I've trained my endocrinologist. She knows, okay, what are your questions? And I mean, and I'll come see her, and I take my shoes and socks off, right? Because I know that checking your feet should be a part of an exam, but not every doctor will do it. Now, I had a really great general practitioner who helped me through my initial stages, but he was not an expert in diabetes and was not very proactive. And I said, I'm going to find me an endocrinologist who can try to make a difference in my life. And so my advice would be, I mean, don't take this wrong, but if you're not feeling the love with your doctor, find yourself someone who you can relate to better, who you can have a relationship with, who is proactive along with you. I mean, I am fortunate enough, I have one, but I had to make a change, and I was very nervous about that, you know?
Same here. I think that was the best decision I made, was to change doctors. My current endo, and he's been my doctor for the past 7 or 8 years. To him, I'm Anna. I'm a whole person and not just a dysfunctional pancreas.
Right. Yeah, right.
Which is, and that has made quite a difference. And he has trained me, actually, not the other way around. And we are partners, and he knows that I have to make all my decisions every single day. And he has he has trained me to do it wisely. And if I'm in doubt, I just text him, and he will text me back and say, do this or do the other thing. And that's how it works. And it's a partnership. And I am in love with my doctor. Yeah. I know his kids, and he knows mine, and we have a very close relationship, and that's great. Yeah. I
think we're fortunate because we might be able to make a change, but not everybody can make a change for whatever the reason might be. So I would say educate yourself, learn about your disease so you know what to ask about when you get there. There's so many great sites, Beyond Type 1, Beyond Type 2, taking control of your diabetes, whatever. There's so much good information. Come armed, ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah, the best thing, and these are my favorite words, I mean, in kind of this model of what chronic care is all about, the patient should be proactive and activated.
Yes.
So you're right, Robert. There's lots of ways to get information. You want to just hear it from one person, even if it's your doctor. You want to hear it from multiple sources, reliable sources, no fake news sources.
That's right.
Yeah, and nobody can help you manage 288 glucose values a day from your CGM. You're the only one who could do that with your data. So it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, that's a great point.
That was going to be my next question too. I was going to ask you, Dr. Fran, what advice you give patients the most frequently, if that's changed over the years. I know you work a lot with children, but I'm sure their parents are very involved as well.
Oh, absolutely. I do stop seeing patients. It's very hard as a pediatric endocrinologist to say goodbye, I've known some of these kids since they were 10 months, 2 years, and, gone through puberty with them. They've gone through the death of my mother. And you're right, Michelle, my patients know as much about me as I know about them. And so I do put my foot down. I can deal with parents. I love parents, but a spouse, forget it. So as soon as you get married, you're out. But, it really is about, bringing forth your questions, having them written down makes all the difference in the world. Keeping your own, notebook of all your labs. You should be getting all the data. It's your data. It's not anybody else's data. And because who knows what the medical system is going to be in the future, how to really keep your own medical record and review it. Say, come in and say, 2 years ago, my A1C was this, I did this, it got better, or I did this, it got worse. What do you think? How can we work this together? I mean, the more you come with questions, the better the encounter, the better you walk out with, the optimal kind of partnership advice.
Yeah.
Agree 100%.
Right. And I feel like for me, I was 17 when I was diagnosed. So Dr. Fran, I would have seen you for a couple months. And then once I turned 18, I ended up, switching to an adult endocrinologist, and everything had shifted. I went from my parents were very involved, my doctor was very involved, to basically trying to figure it out. And I think this is great conversation because I'm learning a lot from each of you. And I think that question also is as we age with diabetes, Michelle, you have children, you get married, you go through all these different phases. I went to college, and I think sometimes these are those conversations that we don't necessarily have enough with our providers. And I didn't know what questions to ask, but I should have been asking questions about, okay, if I go to a party, or if I'm doing this with my friends, what should I do with my dosage? And those were the things that I did fail to inform myself about.
Yeah.
And so, even as of recent, I didn't go to the endocrinologist for about 2 years since COVID started. And that's because me being young and a bit naive, I have to admit, I was like, oh, I got it all figured out. I don't need to go in.
Been there, done that.
Yep. And so my blood sugars had just started, rising and rising. I noticed I was getting more and more 400s, even 500s. And eventually, this was about a month ago, I took it into my own hands, and I was like, okay, I'm going to call my endo, I'm going to schedule an appointment. And sure enough, I went in. My A1C was the highest it's ever been. And there were issues with my pump that I had no idea about, and I wouldn't have known had I not gone in. And so it was starting to take a really big toll on me mentally. I was just so burnt out with diabetes. I was getting frustrated when I simply just needed to go ask for help. And I think that's one piece of advice that I would give. Don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it, because you can still be strong and seek medical advice.
Absolutely.
And
it's a sign of strength time to ask for help.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's your body, it's your life. Take control of your diabetes. That's the advice I'd give anybody.
Yeah, you take control, but also give yourself grace, because we already know there's so many things that can affect our numbers that no matter, even as proactive as we attempt to be, sometimes it's just being reactive. You just got to be reactive. You know what I'm saying?
especially this time of the year. Give yourself some grace. Come on, people. You're going for dinner. You're going to office parties. I mean, come on. I mean, you have to live your life. You have to enjoy life. Everything in moderation. We've heard that 1,000 times, but I think give yourself some grace, and give yourself some grace about the failure that you've had and the successes that are going to come your way. We're not all perfect.
Thank God.
And I think in this, kind of in the same vein, mental health is something that we've seen being discussed a lot more in tandem with diabetes. And so for each of you, how have you been able to deal with mental health and your emotional side? And when diabetes gets you down, what steps are you taking to kind of reset mentally?
So for me, I my job is I work for the government, so, and it can be very intellectually challenging at times, and that will put a stress on you. And there, I have made it a point. I am seriously really big on self-care because yeah, I just want to be young forever. So I'm really big on self-care. And I will let them know I am taking a diabetic day, whether it be physical, whether it just be mental, where I just need to sleep it off, I am taking a diabetic day. And don't be afraid to do that. I get it. Not everyone may have the luxury of taking days off because they may not have the time to take day off, but you also have to think about it in the sense that if you're working a 9 to 5 and you get sick and you're not able to come back to work, they're not going to come home and help you take care of what's going on in your home. They're just rolling the next body in. Okay, so you're taking care of you because you have to take care of home. So mentally, if I'm just not there, I just take a day. If I need to take a week, that's what I'm taking too. Just take a step back. It's okay to take a step back. Sometimes I have to completely close off myself from social media and everything just to get that mental break because, everything is burning out. Mentally, diabetes is stressing me out. Trying to keep up with motivating everybody else out there, whether they have diabetes or not, just motivating other people, that can get overwhelming too. So if I don't take care of me, then I'm not going to have anything to pour into anybody else, whether it be work, whether it be motivating anybody, whether it be taking care of my household. So when it gets overwhelming, I just take a step back. I've heard people say, when their insulin pumps are, alarming nonstop, they take a pump break and go. I don't know if I'll ever be able to take a pump break because I don't really like to take shots that much. But I totally understand that too, because there are times I just want to rip it off and throw it against the wall because it's beeping too much. But yeah, it's okay. It's just okay to just take a step back. Close off everything if you need to, and just take a mental break. That's my basic. Just take a break. It'll be there tomorrow.
You take a day off. I take a day off and cook, take a day off and go for long walks, or just crawl into bed with a good book and take a day off. And that's it. And be open about it. So I need time off. Well, when I was diagnosed, get professional help. If it gets overwhelming, get professional help. When I was diagnosed, that was the first thing I did. I said, I cannot cope with 2 young kids, work, job, house, husband, so it was just too much. So every now and then I just call her back and we get a couple of sessions and that's it.
That's all great advice. Love each of you and all of your input. Dr. Fran, I did have a question for you. How have you advised your patients experiencing mental distress or burnout?
Well, again, it all depends on how prolonged, how severe, and what it's done physically to them. I've seen, A1Cs of 14 all of a sudden pop up, and it depends on where they are in their diabetes journey, whether that's super dangerous or not. It's not good, but, whether it's imminently dangerous. So, it all depends. But I do think, number one, find somebody you can talk to. So whether it's your parent, your spouse, your best friend, and, to be able to unload. Find a little bit, life's about a pyramid of people. So up at the top, there are very few people where you can really, pour your heart out, who love you so much, they'll listen and really try to help. And then you get to, kind of a broader pyramid, but less involvement in your life. But it's important all the way up and down. So it's from, who's that really important number of people that you could talk to intimately about, then who are some of the other community that you can talk to, who can you listen to? So it's, there's a number of layers, but often at the very top of that is a mental health professional. And it all depends on where somebody is, whether or not they need mental health intervention. or medical intervention. You know, I've hospitalized people in the past because, you know, we can't continue down this road. But, you know, I do try to help my patients as well, and listening is really important. Knowing there's somebody who will listen to you and not judge you, and just, you know, maybe bounce back. Well, why do you feel that way? How did you come to that conclusion? Do you think that's the best way to approach this? And be a sounding board, you know, can also be really helpful. Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of a firm believer that many of us just need somebody really to talk to who is professional and can give us professional advice.
I agree with you. Definitely there's like micro steps that you can take as well. I would say like journaling is something that's been helpful for me. Yeah. I talk to my parents when I'm having tough days. There's someone who really understands my diabetes the most. And I think, like you said, you know, don't be afraid to talk to a mental health professional if you feel like that's like that's the next step for you. But yeah, I think diabetes is challenging, you know, and it just comes in waves.
Yes.
And so my next question is, what have been some of your biggest challenges that you've faced with diabetes, and how have you been able to overcome them? Like, what advice would you give someone that might be experiencing a similar challenge?
The greatest challenge? To get an education in diabetes. It's very, very hard at that time. And I think Dr. Fran mentioned this. Doctors know everything and patients don't know anything. So patients should do what doctors say and nothing else. But that's sort of once every 3 months. And what happens in between? So getting an education and being able to make your own decisions, informed and well thought through decisions, has been a challenge. And so, yes, education, for me, it's that, get the best education you can as soon as possible.
I'm going to put my chef hat on and say that getting a hold of how you take care of your body in terms of what you eat, you know, think of it as a lifestyle way of eating, not a diabetic diet, not a restrictive thing, but learn how foods interact with your body and your diabetes and your blood glucose, and how that all coordinates with your exercise and your whole lifestyle. So I don't like the word diet. And, you know, when I was diagnosed, and I work with a lot of people that says, well, my doctor said I can't eat this, and they said I shouldn't eat that. And you hear a lot of that. So my advice is take baby steps, learn what you like, find yourself a certified registered dietitian who can help you to learn about your body and your nutrition and the foods that you like, and start slow, take baby steps and learn how to eat and live a healthier diabetic lifestyle, opposed to like this thought, well, I'm not going to buy this diet book and I'm going to do this diet thing and I'm going to do this new fad thing, or I'm going to take this supplement. I mean, there's so much, crazy stuff out there. You know, I think I would suggest create a lifestyle way of eating that you can sustain for the rest of your life. And I think amazing things will happen. Portion control for me was number one. Once I got a hold of my portions, then things started to really work good for me. My blood sugar my blood glucose levels became better. And it wasn't eating alone. I had to throw in some exercise component in there. I had to throw in regular visits with my doctor and eye doctor and checking my blood sugars often to just make sure that what I was doing was helpful to control my diabetes.
I don't know. For me, I would have, I'm sorry. For me, I would have to say, like Robert said, don't be afraid to try stuff. Do it when it comes to eating, do it do it for your lifestyle. So for instance, me, I'm from the Caribbean. There's, the certain, or even if you look at like, soul food cooking for African Americans and that kind of stuff, a lot of people, a nutritionist would automatically say, well, you got to throw all of that out.
Right.
Start eating this bland food.
No.
Okay, that's not what I grew up with. So that's not going to work. And like Robert said, I might be able to get 2 days into that, but then I'll give up because it's just not what works for me. Another thing would be exercising. I am big on fitness because that's just what I do. I've always ran track. Well, not always, I don't run now, but I ran track, that's how it started. And now I'm really big into that, and I would get questions about, well, when I do certain things, I'm either spiking or dropping, and it gets frustrating. So then I don't want to work out. Well, like Robert said, you have to find what works for you. You have to play around with some stuff and figure out what works for you. And then you can keep moving, building from there. If you don't take the time to put in the work to figure those things out, then you won't get to where you can start maintaining and sustaining. So the biggest advice is just you have to put in time for you. Yes, it's diabetes, it can be generalized, but it honestly is gonna affect each and every one of us a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So we have to put in that work to learn that.
And don't beat yourself up for being that bad diabetic,
Yeah.
or how society wants to give you that stigma about that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I tell people all the time, do you know why the rear view mirror in your car is so small and the windshield is so big? Well, it's not because of where you've been. Stop looking behind, look in front of you. Look it through the windshield, go forward. You can't beat yourself up for the bad diabetic you think you are, or what people thought you were. Move forward, get over it. And that's hard for people to do.
Yeah.
But that was key for me because I'm hard on myself.
So there's a real science now around what we call behavior change, which is about small steps, big rewards, understanding where am I now? Here I am, I'm eating 7 tacos a day. I'm not going to give up tacos, but can I get to 5 tacos a day?
Exactly.
And keep moving forward and realizing, any one maybe less than optimal decision isn't going to do anything, right? So you just get back on your wagon.
That's right.
And you keep going forward.
That's right.
And I agree with you. Beating yourself up for what you did in the past or what you didn't do in the past is, in any aspect of life, I think a real ticket to making yourself nuts.
Right.
You got to keep moving forward. And, if you take a little wrong step, come back and make it the right step after that.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I would have to say, for me, one of the biggest challenges, I think just as, growing up as like a adolescent, like going into college and things like that, first, it wasn't necessarily wearing my devices. I've always worn them very proudly. But there are like some body image things that you go through. And so it was like foods that I would avoid eating, or just like portioning because I didn't want, just my relationship with food ended up being affected more so than anything else. And it's still something that I'm working through, but I think each day I'm learning more, just to give myself that grace that you all talked about. And, when I see a blood sugar that's kind of high, rather than getting all upset and frustrated, just being, okay, well, how can I fix that next time? Or what can I try next time? And that's been extremely helpful for me. And lately I've had a lot of bruising on my body from my insulin pump. And that's been something that I've been trying to figure out as well. And it's just another thing where it's like, really what you say up here is really what's going to impact, the way that you handle diabetes on a day-to-day. Your attitude towards it is everything. And so trying to stay positive even when it's hard, telling yourself, you got it. You're not going to quit. You got it. And just having that internal dialect with yourself is really important. And one thing that's been helpful for me is when I look at myself in the mirror and I see those scars on my body, I say, Tiana, I love you. And you just tell yourself how much you love yourself in the mirror. And for me, that's been extremely helpful. Just getting over, some of those things. And I'm just proud of my body every day for, allowing me to live with diabetes. So.
And like Anna and Michelle said, there's so much amazing technology that can help us all live better than we could 10 years ago, 5 years ago, right? And learn about those technologies. I use a CGM, and You know, all these things help me to live better. And so I would give that advice to you, to anyone watching. Go to your doctor and ask, how do I get these devices? What do I need to do? And really learn about them. They could change your life, no doubt.
I completely agree with you. And we have a few more things I wanted to ask you guys before we wrap up. But I know that each of you have, some of you have had children, some of you have gotten married, and just different milestones in life. And so as someone who eventually wants to, have all of those things happen for me, what are some ways that you've been able to make space for diabetes in those moments? Like, how has it fit in for you?
It finds its own way in. I mean, yeah. Even when I don't want to let it in, it's like knocking at my front door. For me personally, the fact that my wife of 41 years and I communicate a lot. I mean, she's more inquisitive about diabetes than me. So she's always asking me, what the doctor say? What are you doing? I mean, in a very positive way. And it's holding me accountable. And she understands that the alarm is going to go off at 3 a.m. because I'm having a low blood sugar. Let's fix it together. So I think a support group of type 3s that you can surround yourself with is super important.
Definitely. Ask for help, get help, and plan for the unexpected. Plan ahead and plan for the unexpected. Something's going to happen that's going to upset you, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But we can do our best to make sure it doesn't upset us so much that we cannot enjoy what's going on, what's happening to us, the moment we're living, the people we're sharing an experience with.
I know for me, with my son, diabetes has just pretty much been a part of me with him and his whole life. So he knows what it is. It's nothing that I had to, I guess, introduce him to, if you will, because it's always been there. As far as my career go, I've made different career moves and stuff like that. And I can remember having my pump go off in the middle of an interview and stuff. I'm like, oh, I can't even ignore it because, of course, it's not on vibrate. It's loud as I don't know what. And I actually remember it being clipped to my bra. So I actually had to stop the interview and walk out because it's kind of weird to stick your hand down. So now, like I said, because I'm more open with it, because back then I wasn't hiding it, but I wasn't as open with it. So now it's just, if I walk into a setting where, I'm going to be in a meeting or something,
right.
And if I have to speak or do anything like that, I always put it out there. I'm just to disclosure, listen, I am wearing a medical device. So if it goes off at any time, I may have to step out. Put it out there. Like I said, diabetes for me is just a fact of my life. And I don't really think, 5 times about it or worry too much about it. And of course and this didn't come instantaneously once I was diagnosed. This is something that I evolved into. But yeah, it's just, I just put it out there. Now I walk around, you can see my devices most of the time. I don't hide any of that. People, sometimes it starts conversations, whether it be someone asking me what it is, or it starts a conversation where someone else is also that, but it can, they're wearing the same stuff. So we have to start, that way. But yeah.
Yeah.
So Michelle, as far as the different phases of life, I think if you go into it just accepting that this is not even accepting, but just it's part of who I am versus it's not a taboo type of thing, then you own it. When you own it and you show the confidence you have behind it, people are more accepting of it, if you will. If you're being secretive or taboo-ish about it, and they're like, well, what is that? What is going on? Why, so yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. People will say, what's that thing on your arm? And I say, well, it's my Wi-Fi device. You want to connect? Or I'll be in an airport and someone will come up to me and go, hey, brother, because he's got one on, right? So Michelle, I'm on your team on that one. Be proud, be loud, plus it gives you confidence to accept your disease as something that you're in control of.
Yep.
And you know, if you accept it, everybody around you does too.
Yep.
It's when you're trying to hide it or, you know, make it something it's not, then people get confused and think, oh, it must be really bad. But, you know, I agree. The more upfront somebody is and says, you know, I love what you said in those interviews, Michelle. I mean, I've got diabetes, use my medical device. And, you know, as soon as it's out in the open, nobody can say anything.
That's right.
Yeah.
But getting teenagers to do that is tough.
Yeah.
You know, the drive of the teenager is to be like every other teenager. So if hair is green going that direction, they've got to have hair green going that direction. And this sets them apart, which is why, you know, that community, having other people that you know is so reinforcing.
Wow. I couldn't agree more. This is such an conversation. I'm just taking it all in. We do just have a couple minutes left. So before we wrap, I have a few last questions. And this one is just pertaining to the new year. So as we all know, we're about to head into 2022. It's crazy to think about. But what are 2 diabetes related goals that you might set for yourself this year? And for Dr. Fran, what are some goals that you're helping your patients set this year?
For me, it's going to be more exercise. Because I don't like to exercise. Like Michelle, you love to exercise. I'm not big on it, but my wife and I have bikes and we're going to go ride more. And that's our goal.
So I don't have specific goals. I think it's just continuing what I'm doing. So you know, I have this mantra that I always say, try, fail, and adjust. And as time has gone on, I've kind of like, you know, adjusted that mantra to say, you know, try, fail, adjust, do learn, adjust, do succeed, adjust. Because every time you do something, you might have to adjust just a little bit. You're never just perfect and you're done with it.
Right.
So for me, you know, I have found my calling with exercise. That's what I enjoy doing. I get a lot of people asking me questions about, you know, how are you not fearful with working out and, you know, going low and having all of these problems and that kind of stuff. So it's fun having conversations with people. I love just waking up every morning, sharing that I'm checking my glucose levels first thing every morning. I'm dancing around in the kitchen. I'm getting in my living room and I'm getting that workout in. So for me, my goals in 2022, not necessarily diabetic specific, but just health and wellness. However that comes, no matter what affliction you have, I'm just here to motivate you and inspire you to get up and get moving. Because no matter what it is that you have going on in your life, you can set aside a couple of minutes for yourself to do something that will help make you better for the next day and better for the next day and keep building on that. So.
Preach it, girl.
Yep.
Amazing.
I have to go with Robert, and I have to try to go back and to my pre-COVID exercise level, and working out a little bit more and going back to what I used to do, which is not right up to par right now. But well, that's what I'm going to do next year.
I want my patients to love themselves and accept what they have, and I love the word gracious for who they are and, you know, how they live their lives.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's great. Right.
Thank you. And Dr. Fran, I have one more question for you. This is an audience question. It says, like, just keep hoping for a cure. What do you know about the future of type 1 as far as a cure is concerned? I know it's a bit loaded.
Yeah, that's a big loaded question. It will be cured one day, and I would really like to be here. So, and I'd like to still be practicing and give it to all my patients. I don't know whether I write a prescription, you know, and of course a cure means something different to all of us. But from a medical standpoint, whether we could replace the beta cell so that it works without immunosuppression, even if we have to replace it again, I think that would be okay. And I do think There's some more recent evidence that we are closer than we've been in the past.
Yeah.
So I'm in my early 70s. I'd like to retire one day, not too soon. And so there's 10 years it's got to be done so I can retire having written that for all my patients.
Very hopeful. I really am. Thank you. And then, Robert, one question for you from the audience. Where can someone find, if you have, a good low-carb lasagna recipe?
Wow, that's a great question. So, okay, so here's my shameless plug. So my website, happydiabetic.com, is everything deliciousness, where I turn ordinary ingredients into something extraordinary. So what I'm going to suggest they do, go to my website, go to my contact link in the top side of the page, get a hold of me, and I will send you a lasagna recipe that will be unbelievable. happydiabetic.com. Any questions, comments, concerns, eating? Yeah, I'm here for you. I have a podcast, The Happy Diabetic Kitchen.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely check you out. I'll be heading there after this.
Thank you.
Thank you all for just taking your time to share your stories and your experiences, using your voice to spread positivity. I think that's something that we all need to do more of, and all of you are doing such an amazing job in your own capacity, taking up space in the diabetes community.
And so is Beyond Type 1.
Oh,
Doing an amazing job in getting us information that we can trust.
Thank you. We do appreciate it. Well, you all show us how we can continue to live well with diabetes. And I do look forward to hearing more and keeping up with each of you. So thank you again. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. I'm going to hand it over to Jordan, and she's going to go ahead and close this out.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tiana. Thank you to all of you tuning in tonight. Thank you to this group for sharing their experiences and expertise with us. Covered a lot of ground tonight, and we learned so much from all of you. For those of you watching, this was our last community table of the year, but we will be back next year. So please look out for more information about community table in 2022, and be sure to stay tuned into Beyond Type 1 channels. We're going to be highlighting some takeaways from this conversation and this wonderful group of panelists specifically. So be on the lookout for that. Once again, we just want to take some time quickly to thank those who make this all possible. Community Table is presented by the JDRF-Beyond Type 1 Alliance and made possible by Abbott Diabetes Care, Dexcom, Lilly Diabetes, MannKind, Medtronic, Omnipod, Roche Diabetes Care, and Tandem. Thank you again to this amazing group, and we'll see you all again next year at the Community Table.